Hi everybody! Happy snowy Sunday. I was surprised at how hard it's snowing. It's kind of gone back and forth tonight, so just a second here, I got to bring up my screen so I can see a little better. How is everybody this evening? Let me type something. Okay. Oh, people are coming in. Hello everybody. So what's everybody been doing on a snowy Sunday afternoon? I've been working. I'll show you at the end all the stuff that's coming up for March. I got most of it done now, so I'm getting there. Trying to, anyway. For some reason my camera's being testy tonight. I don't know why. Oh my goodness, a second. I have to scroll. Hi everybody. Everybody's hearing me okay? Snowy. Yeah, Jan, it's snowy. Sewing and watching videos. Yep. That's a good thing to be doing on. I actually didn't even turn the TV on today. I like to sit in the quiet because it's always noisy at the store, you know. The phone rings, people are in, there's always something going on, and I like sitting at home in the quiet. It's just quiet here. Used to be a lot noisier when I had more cats because the cats were, you know, running around and stuff. And now it's very quiet with just the one because she's very, very quiet. You wish you had my ambition? Well, you know, Jan, what I do is I have a plan. And if I don't get the plan done, you know, I have to keep going to get everything done. So, hi, Jeanette. So this is going to be the project bag. I saw this maybe a couple of years ago on YouTube, and there was a gal that was doing some really cute bags out of those. Out of the Pioneer Woman quilted placemats, and so. I started making a few of them, and they're fun to do. And she made some cute, like, little cosmetic bags and some other little different bags. And then she did this project bag. And I had made a project bag off of a pattern from Annie, you know, those Annie's bags. So I'd made a project bag from that, but it took a long time. It was the pattern had a lot of pieces. You had to quilt your fabric and, you know, all this, and it's like it was just kind of took me a little while to get it done. And I really liked the bag, but I thought, well, this would be fun to use the project bag. Well, then this gal that was doing these bags with the placemats did a project bag, but she doesn't sew that much. I mean, the gal is a new sewer, and so some of the stuff she was doing is like, I don't think I can figure that out. I don't think that works. So what I ended up doing for this, and I wanted something to put my orange pop rulers in, okay? So these are the Kimberbell orange pop rulers, and that's what I made this bag for. I wanted to make it big enough so that all of my rulers would hang in here. You know, here's a nice handle that I can hang them up on a hook, okay? And I just thought I like the clear front so that I could see what's in the bag, you know, and this is done with the tablecloth vinyl. So what I had ended up doing is I kind of took the original bag that I made. I don't know if I have it around here somewhere. The original bag I made, and then I took the placemat concept and I sort of rolled the two of them in together, and I just kind of made up my own pattern. Okay, so this is sort of my own pattern. I don't have the pattern written out in words, so I figured I'd be making you a video. And I actually made another video that I'm going to upload afterwards just for binding. And I did just the binding, actually like creating binding and then putting the binding on the bag because it's going to take too long to do all that tonight. So I thought I pre-recorded that this afternoon, and then you'll have just a binding video too. Yeah, it does. And but the way she did it was totally different than this, and this is sort of like a hybrid of that bag and the bag that I found originally from Annie's. It was an Annie's pattern that I got, but it was a lot more involved. And this one's so easy. It doesn't take too long to make it. So, and then you don't have to do all the quilting because, you know, the placemats are already quilted. Isn't that cute? Now, they do have several placemats. There's several different types of placemats. This is one of the newer ones that I got this year. It was white on one side and kind of light blue on the other. And then I had this older one that was, I made this one today. So this one was another one that I had. It was kind of a patchwork one, that it was kind of this kind of teal color on one side, and then it had this patchwork look on the other side. So I have one of those. I made that today. And then I had another one. Now this one's a little small for the pop rulers. They made some placemats that had the scallops on the edge. So that's why I recommended to you to get the rectangle ones, because they're bigger. And then this one was another one that they had that was, this one had the scallops. So you have to cut the scallops off to make it straight, you know. So this one was a pretty color though. I liked it, but I just made it up but it's just a little small. I can actually get the rulers in here, but it's a little short this way. Okay, so just because the mat was smaller because you had to cut those scallops off. So these were actually very roomy. This one, and you see, I've got plenty of room up here to get my rulers all in there. So this is what we're going to make tonight. Okay. So I put up a video yesterday. I had a lot of questions about where to find the PDF file, this project bag PDF file. Okay. So I put up a video on the group yesterday. Hopefully you've seen it. Doing a little bit of stuff on Facebook, how to get to the group, how to get to Dropbox, and how to get to the PDF file. So hopefully that will help people. I have another surprise coming out a little later. I'm not quite ready to announce it yet, so I will let you know probably in the next few days, actually, because I have a couple little things to do to make it even easier for you to find the videos and the documents. Okay, so I'm trying to make it easier for you. It's very hard to find what you want on Facebook, so I'm trying to make it easier so that you can go back and easily find the projects you want, and they're all labeled. So I'm working on that. I will do something with that in the next few days. So okay, so tonight we're gonna make this project bag. It's really fun. Like I said, I made a separate video on just the binding, and I will upload that just right after class. And so you can do the binding. Some of you have done binding lots of times, and I have a few new people that have just joined, and they're newer sewers. So I thought maybe just doing a binding video from start to finish would be better than just taking all this time tonight to do just binding. Okay, so we're going to make the bag, and then we'll talk about the binding, and then I'm going to upload the binding video for you. So most of you that have done binding before will have no problems, but I did put this on with the machine. I did do the binding with the machine. So, okay. So let's turn the camera in here, and we will talk about what you need. So, hi Judy. All right. So I just typed up some simple cutting instructions. I mean, I figured you'd have the video to actually assemble this, so it's pretty simple. Once you get the hang of doing this. And then working with vinyl is kind of weird, you know, so you have to use a Teflon foot and some stuff. So, okay, so you need a Pioneer Woman quilted placemat, and they're about 14 by 19. And I suggested the straight rectangular, no scallops. The scalloped one was the smaller one, and it is just barely big enough for this one was just barely big enough for my rulers. Okay, they will fit in there, but it's still a nice size. So if you want to make some smaller ones, okay. And then you need a fat quarter of something that's kind of a coordinating fabric. Whoops, just dropped my instructions on the floor. A fat quarter of some coordinating fabric, whatever you want. I had this one had polka dots today, and it matched my placemat. It was kind of a orangey red, and this matched my placemat. And like this one I did in the coral because it was kind of a green with the coral on it. So this one worked really well. And the original one that I did for the class was also in red. I just happened to have a lot of red fabric, so it just happened to work. So you can use whatever colors you like. the Pioneer Woman placemats, there are several, you know, styles, so you can kind of pick your own. But I would tell you to buy these ones that are quilted because then it gives it a nice base, okay? You need at least a 16-inch zipper, and you want a regular polyester zipper. Now this one's, I think, around 22 inches. I just did yellow for this one, okay? And you need it at least 16 inches long, and you don't want metal. You want it just the polyester with the plastic teeth, okay? I do usually take my zippers out of the package and I iron them because they're very curly, you know, in the package. So I always take them out and iron them. Okay, you need a piece of webbing, 1-inch webbing. Where did it go? Here it is. It doesn't matter what color it is because we're going to make a cover for it. And mine was brown. It's just a vinyl, or this is the nylon stuff, so it's 1 inch wide. Okay, and you want to cut it 12 inches wide, or 12 inches long. And then you need some clear vinyl. Now the clear vinyl, I buy it usually at Walmart. It's kind of a medium weight, and you don't want the thinnest stuff, and you don't want the really heavy stuff. But this is kind of the one in the middle. It has kind of a pink or red tissue on it. So anyway, this is my piece of vinyl, clear vinyl, and then you need a Teflon foot for your machine. And we will need to use that for part of the construction tonight, okay? And a Teflon foot, we have these at the store, so if you don't have one, a lot of the machines come with them, but a Teflon foot has this little Teflon tape on the bottom, so it will go over that crazy vinyl better, okay? So this is my Teflon foot. Okay. So you're going to cut your vinyl. I got it out of my hand. So the vinyl was cut at 9 1/4 inches tall and 14 inches wide. All right. So that's how big that was. Your piece of nylon webbing, you know, for the handle is 12 inches long. And then out of your coordinating fabric, you're going to cut 2 pieces that are 14 inches by 1 1/4. So these are going to put on either side of the zipper, all right, for the little fabric part on the zipper. And then you need a piece that's 2 3/4 inches by 12 inches long, and this is going to be the little cover for the handle of the bag, okay? And then you also need your binding, and in the video that I will upload right after class, the binding video, you need 4 2 1/4 inch by the width of your fat quarter. So if you had a fat quarter, or if you had yardage, I have yardage here, so I have 2 full widths of fabric is what I have for my binding. Okay, so this is the binding, and I use 2 1/4 inch binding. All right. Okay. So this is a really fun project. When I first started working with it, I wanted to throw it out the window because Jan was having a really hard time with this. And what the problem was you have to figure out how wide to make that piece of that vinyl so that it fits on the bag. Now, I will tell you that these placemats are not terribly straight, so we may have to straighten it a little bit sometimes, and they will all be slightly different size, just so you know. But what's cool about these is I can make them any way I want. So like this one I made with the blue side of the placemat, which is here, okay? The blue side of the placemat, and then I used the patchwork on this side, and then put the blue one on the outside. So then you can make it either way. So I think I'll do it this way this time. So either way works, and that's what's kind of fun about these, and then you don't have to do all this quilting because it's already done. What type needle am I using? I am just using a number 11 embroidery needle. I hardly ever take my needles out. You won't have any trouble with the 11s. I didn't break a needle. So, yep, I'm a really bad person to ask about needles because I don't change my needle. I use my number 11 embroidery needles for most of my sewing as well. So, okay. So what I did first is you have to take the binding off. There's binding on these placemats, and you want to take the binding off the placemat. And I just took a seam ripper and I just pulled all the binding off because I want my raw edges. I tried doing it with the binding on, but when I put my new binding on, it was just wide enough that you could see the edge, and I didn't like the look of it. Okay, so I took all the binding off the placemat first, and then I cut off on one end. I don't know which end I cut this off of. Probably this end. There we go. I cut off 4 inches off the end. Okay. Now, Lynn told me that she was telling me that she cut hers off, and her placemat was not quite, because I told you that it would be, you now have 2 pieces, 4 inches by 14 and 15 by 14. Now, if your big piece is not quite 15, it's okay. It's okay. All right. Mine on this particular placemat, this is the one that I got a couple of years ago. This one actually is a little longer than 15, so that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So we can adjust it a little bit at the end if we need to. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, so I've got this cut off. This is my 4 inches here. I'm going to set this aside for a minute because we have to do a little sewing on. The first thing we're going to do is put our zipper in. Now, I didn't, let's get a little closer here. Having a little trouble adjusting my camera today for some reason. All right, so when I put my zipper in, I'm going to kind of try to put it in the center-ish, but the one thing that worked really well for me is instead of trying to pin it, I like to, well, you have to put these little 1 1/4 inch strips on here. Okay, so what I do is I take my, my little narrow glue pen here, and I'm going to kind of pick where I'm going to put this, and I'm going to glue this down, and I'm going to try to keep the glue kind of out towards the edge so that it doesn't get on my fabric. But it worked really well to just put a little of this fabric glue on here. And you notice I'm not using the bigger Dritz one tonight because this is a little narrower and it's smaller, easier to get it right where I want it. So I'm going to adjust, I'm going to glue this on. I'm matching the raw edges on the tape here. So the raw edge of the fabric is going along the edge of the tape, just like you were putting your right sides together. So it's right sides together. And I'm just going to glue this on so that it doesn't move around. It's easier than trying to pin on zippers. So, okay, and I've got the top of the zipper up. So here's the zipper pull. So this is the top of the zipper. So right sides together. Okay, so we're just going to kind of put this on. I'm just going to do one side at a time. Just kind of holds it in place for me. Okay, whoops. Having trouble with things. This is a long zipper, so it keeps catching on everything for me. It's hard to do stuff like this on the machine. I do so much of this stuff like I stand up and go over to my cutting table. So when I do these classes, I have to try to do stuff on the machine. It makes it harder. Okay. Now, the one thing I am going to tell you is I would tell you to use polyester thread. Use a good, strong polyester thread like Mettler because you want your bag to be strong, And so I have red Mettler thread in my bobbin and in my needle. Okay, so I have one side of my zipper tape along the edge of my zipper, okay? And I'm going to sew this. Now, I don't like zipper feet very well. So this is so flat that it will work fine to do this without a zipper foot. So what I'm going to do, this is real flat against the teeth here. I'm going to use a straight stitch with the needle in the center. And I'm just going to run my foot right along the edge of the fabric and the zipper. Okay? And that's going to end up being about a 3/8 inch seam, but it worked out really well because it makes it a nice distance from the teeth and it doesn't get caught or anything, okay? So I'm going to go, and I am going to sew this just with my regular J-foot. The zipper is not that tall and it really doesn't cause that much of a problem, and I really don't like the zipper feet, especially the one that comes with a machine, so I don't always use a zipper foot unless I absolutely have to put a zipper in. And I'm lazy, I don't want to have to change the foot, okay? So we're going to go along the edge here. I've got my needle in the center and the foot right along the edge here. This was a really fun bag to do. right, and if you're afraid to put zippers in, this is a very, very simple way to put zippers in, okay? I tried to make it super simple so you wouldn't be afraid of the zippers. People are always afraid of zippers, okay? All right, so we're going to cut this off. And I'm going to take this over to I got my iron right next to me, and I am going to iron this out flat before I put the next one on, okay? So you don't need to watch me do that. I think you know what I'm doing. I'm just going to iron it flat. Oops, here. This fabric is a little stiff, so I need to kind of finger press it down a little bit. But I need to get it out of the way before I start the next piece. Okay. Sure, I got it pretty flat. I think I do. Okay. My iron's been causing me fits today, so hopefully it'll keep working long enough to do this. Okay, so there's one side. So I just folded it back and pressed it down to get it out of the way. Now the trick with the next piece is we need to get them lined up on the ends. Just cut this out of the way, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Again, I'm going to put the raw edges together, the edge of the seam tape with the zipper tape with the raw edge of the fabric, but I want to make sure that they're all lined up, so when I unfold it, that it is all lined up on the ends. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my little glue pen here, get a little more glue, and I'm going to glue kind of towards the outside edge there. And these are just things that I've learned to do with zippers. I'm not afraid to do zippers. I've done a lot of zippers, but I just don't like zipper feet. And sometimes they work well. You know, there's sometimes you have to use a zipper foot. But when these are so flat, and you're just doing everything flat with the little short pieces of fabric here, this just works so much faster. And then you don't have to change your foot so much. Okay, so we're going to put a little more glue on there. And line up the edges. Make sure looks like I cut them pretty well. Sometimes I'm a little bit careful. I have a little problem cutting lengths of things when they're that narrow. I get them a little long, so I think I got it pretty much the same length. So, all right, got that, and then I'm going to work on down here. Try not to get too much glue on my machine. I had glue all over my machine this afternoon when I was working on this. Thought the yellow zipper was kind of fun. I just kind of use whatever zippers I have, you know, something that's kind of fun colored. I like bright colors, so these placemats are all pretty bright. Making sure that I'm not seeing a bunch of questions. Okay. All right, so does everybody... So I've got the raw edges together here. This is the edge of the seam tape and the raw edge of the fabric, and I'm going to do the same thing. I've got the needle in the center. I'm going to put my foot right along the edge of the zipper tape and the fabric, and I'm just going to sew down. And even though that zipper's there, it sews just fine with your regular foot. And if you want to put your zipper foot on, put your zipper foot on. I find it harder to keep my seam allowances correct. That's why I usually use my J-foot when I'm doing zippers like this. So many bags, this is how you put the zippers in it. They're very flat, you know, and they're all flat, and you're just using a couple of pieces of fabric or something, and makes it easier. Okay, doesn't matter how far away from the pole you sew the fabric. Oh, from the pole? No. That's why I told you to do at least a 16-inch zipper, because then you had plenty of room on each end. Because we're going to be cutting it off anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, mine's not exactly even. I've got a longer tail on one end than the other, Elaine's, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to take this over to my iron that's right next to me, and we're going to fold this out and iron it down. always feels weird to iron sitting down. Okay, make sure I get it even and flat. Okay, that looks pretty good. So there's our two little pieces of fabric on either side of our zipper. Now you can go ahead, I don't remember if I did this morning or not. I don't think I did. You can go ahead and top stitch on this if you want. So let's top stitch this one. I don't think I did the last one, but you can. So I'm just going to top stitch it, and what I'm going to do to top stitch it is I'm going to run the inside of my J-foot, like the inside of the zigzag part of it, right along this this fold line. And I don't think I top stitched the other one, but you can do it or you don't have to. I didn't do the other one, but I'm running the inside of my zigzag, right, my zigzag foot, right along the edge of that fold. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the fold. Still got my needle in the center. That's why I like to use matchy thread. I am not a very good top stitcher, so if you don't want it to show, use really matchy thread so that if you don't quite get it right exactly where you want it, it doesn't really show that much. So yeah, so you can't even, I don't even know if you can see my stitching. You can barely see it. Okay, I'm going to do the other side. Yeah, I think the one I made this morning I didn't top stitch it, but it looks fine either way. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing, about 1/8 of an inch away from that fold on the left. I'm just kind of running my foot right along that fold. All right. Now these machines sew really straight, so don't try to help them too much. Just let it sew. I've learned with my machine to not try to make it so. Yeah, that looks better. Yeah, so I've got it top stitched. You can see it if I hold it real closely. Right? And that's why I like matchy thread, because you know what? If I'm a little crooked, who is going to see it? And there is our zipper ready to be inserted. Right? And this was like, so I think this was a 22-inch zipper that I put on this one. So. And like this is the one I made this morning. I did not top stitch this one. I just pressed it down, and it works just fine. It's just fine that way. So either way. Okay. So now I'm going to make the cover for my handle. I have a fun little tool to show you. So I'm going to take that 2 3/4 by 12-inch piece of fabric, and I'm going to fold the right sides together. Long way, okay, and we're gonna move over to a 1/4-inch seam on our machine. And I have a tendency, so I don't have to change the foot. I like to go over to my Q-tab, and I like to use the piecing stitch on the machine, so I don't have to change the foot. So it's Q02. What it does is it moves the needle over to the right at 5.5, and then I run the fabric right along the edge of the right side edge of my foot, and it makes a 1/4-inch seam. Okay, so I'm going to fold my right sides together, make sure I get the right sides here. And I'm not going to pin this, I'll just hold it. And I'm going to do a 1/4-inch seam. Now you do want the seam to be a little scant, because you don't want it to be too hard to get your strap in there. Okay, I wanted it to be snug so it wasn't like all really loose, but don't get too excited with your 1/4-inch seam. I am going to do a scant one. So I have the fabric, instead of on the full outside edge of my foot, I have it just slightly tucked underneath, and that makes a nice 1/4-inch seam. And then I'm going to, whoops, get this all lined up, and we're going to zoom down to the other end here with a 1/4-inch seam. That way it doesn't really matter. I just had a bunch of like leftover webbing, and it doesn't matter what color it is, because you can use any color you want. And then when you cover it up, who's going to see, right? Okay, so here is my little tube. Now, I've always had problems with these things, trying to get them turned right side out. So I found these cool little tools. Dritz makes these. They are tube turners. And I thought I had the package here somewhere, but evidently, oh, here it is. I got these, I think I got these at Joann's. They're called Quick Turn, and they're tube turners. They work really well, and they have like a couple of smaller ones. So like if you're doing like spaghetti straps or little teeny tiny things, there's a little teeny tiny one, and then there's kind of a medium one. This one's 1/4 inch, and this one is a half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this 1/2 inch one, and I'm going to insert it into this tube. I've always struggled doing this. I'm going to insert it into this tube. We pull this back a little bit. And I'm going to push this up a little bit, and then they give you a little chopstick. And I'm going to just start stuffing this down into this tube. Whoops, second here, I think I moved it too far. Get it stuffed down in there. And then you just keep stuffing, and then it starts turning right side out. This one's being contrary tonight. It's always on camera, you know. So once you get it started, you just keep stuffing it down in there, and it will start turning right side out. Get it started here. There we go. Okay, so I get it started, and see how it's turning right side out on the other end? And then you just pull. And it is now right side out. I have a hard time getting things right side out, so I love that little tool. I started making quite a few of these, you know, trying to get the class ready, and I was just really struggling, and I thought, and I had those, and I thought, oh, I have those little tube turners. So, okay, and then I'm going to kind of finger press this seam down. When I iron this, I'm going to go take this to the iron now. I'm going to iron it down so that the seam is on the bottom, like this. Okay, so the seam's going to be on the bottom, and when I go to put my little strap in, this is going to be on the underneath side. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this over to my iron and give it a nice press. Okay. So I pressed it down. So see the seams in the center here. Yeah, I've seen those little ones with the wires too, Jan. These were just, I just found these at, I think I was at Joann's one day, you know, before COVID, BC as we say. I just found these, and I just thought it was cool because it was something that I could quickly get them turned, and it works really well. Okay, so here is the cover then for my handle. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to take my piece of 12-inch ribbing, or, you know, nylon webbing, and we're going to kind of, oops, open this up a little bit. And this is why you don't want to get too excited with with that seam. You don't want to get it too big. Once you get it started, it's okay. I always have a little trouble getting it started, but it slides in there pretty easily. There we go. So it just kind of slides in. And whoops. Get it pushed in there, and it just slides in pretty well. So then, there's my handle with the little cover on both ends. And then I'm going to take a couple of those little clover clips, and I'm just going to clip the ends so it doesn't, you know, move around on me. So, and we're going to set this aside for a minute anyway, okay? So there's the handle. And then it's nice and strong. I thought about just doing, you know, a cloth handle, which would be fine, but it actually, this is one of the things that was in that Annie's pattern, is that they did it with the webbing. It just gives it some body, and then you don't have to worry about it like stretching and stuff. So I thought that looked really nice, but then it was also covered and real pretty. Okay, so there's the handle. So we're going to set this aside. All right. So does anybody have any questions so far? Is this all making sense to everybody? It's pretty simple bags, so. I haven't made a lot of bags over the years, but I just kind of made this up as I went. So, okay. So the next part is we're going to assemble the front. So the front of the bag is going to consist of this zipper that we put the 2 pieces of red fabric on it, and then the vinyl, the clear vinyl, and then that 4-inch piece that we cut off at the bottom. Okay, so I think this one, I haven't decided how I want to do this. If I want to do it this way and do this, or if I think I'll do it that way. I'll make it the opposite of the last one I did. So this is going to be the outside of my bag on the bottom, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to sew my vinyl onto my zipper. And this is where things get a little, a little weird, because we have to use that Teflon foot. You don't want to put this plastic down along the feed dogs, because the feed dogs will not work real well along this vinyl. So we want to make sure the vinyl is on the top. And the other thing I do is I like my zipper pull, and this is up to you. If you like it on the other side, that's fine. I like my zipper pull on the left-hand side when it's closed, and then it opens to the right. So if you want it the other way, you can do it the other way, whichever works for you, okay? So I'm going to put mine on the left, my zipper pull. Okay, so the zipper pull is out here right now, and that's fine. It just keeps it out of the way, but we will be moving that shortly. So I'm going to take my vinyl to the right side of the fabric, and then I'm going to clip this. You don't want to put pins in your vinyl, because then it'll make pinholes in it. So I'm just going to use my little clover clips here. If you don't have some of these, go buy some. They're awesome. They work extremely well. And I don't like pins because I'm always poking myself, but I use pins some. All right, so we're just going to clip this on to the vinyl, and I'm clipping it on the right side of the fabric. And, ooh, I even measured pretty well. Look at there. I think I need to pull it this way just a little bit. There we go. Sometimes I have a little trouble with the measuring part. And then I'm going to sew on this with the vinyl up. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Teflon foot and drop this foot off, and we're going to put the Teflon foot on. And this foot is the same width as my regular foot, so I can still use my 1/4-inch piecing stitch with this foot. So I'm going to continue to do that because I want 1/4-inch seams from now on. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on, and it's got that little Teflon tape on it, so that it will glide over this vinyl. Okay, so we're going to do a 1/4-inch seam. I've got my piecing stitch still on, the needle's kind of over to the right, and I'm going to run my fabric right along the edge of my foot. So let's take the first clip out, and then of course we're going to do a tie off or a back stitch. I prefer usually the tie off is what I do instead of the back stitch. And then I'm going to do my 1/4-inch seam along the edge of my vinyl. My fabric is just a little crooked here, so there we go. Right along the edge here. I even cut these pretty straight, my goodness. I'm not a very good cutter, so when I cut with a rotary cutter, I am dangerous. I've cut myself so many times with a rotary cutter. Whoops, second here, I'm hitting my bag back here. Still doing a 1/4-inch seam. I'm going to go down here to the other end, and we'll tie a knot. Okay. I really like the Teflon foot, so if you don't have one, we have them at the store. I had Tim order a few extras in case people didn't have them. A lot of the machines don't come with them, like mine didn't. I mean, this is one I bought this years ago because none of my machines had it. Some of the machines do come with them now, though. Okay, so now we're going to turn this down. Now, we don't want to be ironing with this, this vinyl. So we're going to turn this down and push this up and give it a finger press. Okay? Don't want to iron on this vinyl because it will just melt it. Ask Jan how she knows. I have had all kinds of problems with vinyls. And we are definitely going to top stitch this one. So I am going to put my needle back into the center position, and so I can stay on the same tab where the quilting stitches are. Q01 places the needle back in the center of the foot, okay, or the center of the machine. Better move my clips because I'll have them all over. All right, so we are going to top stitch this one. And when I top stitch, I use, let me hold this up so you can see a little bit. I use the inside, just like I did before. I used on the zipper, I used this side to help me guide. On this one, I'm going to use the outside edge of the zigzag foot to help me guide. Okay, and it's about 1/8 of an inch. All right. So then we're going to put that edge right along that edge there. So it's about 1/8 of an inch away from my seam, the end of my, or the edge of my seam here. Okay. So we're going to do that. Now this is mostly on the fabric, so you shouldn't have any trouble with this one. You wouldn't really need to use the Teflon foot, but I usually just leave it on until I'm done using it. So this one is, you're mostly on the fabric. The one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to put my binding on with a J foot. And there's another foot, and actually in my video I mentioned showing you a new foot, but I tried it quickly with the vinyl and it did not like the vinyl very well, so I did put my binding on with a J foot. So just ignore that little statement about the new foot, because I will show that to you when we're doing fabric. Okay, so I've got that top stitched. Right, and it's top stitched through the vinyl on the back. Top stitch the zipper. Right, now it's nice and flat. So now we're going to put the other end on, and that's going to be the rest of the front. So I decided that I want this side out this time instead of this side, and I'm going to use this side for the inside this time, and this will be the back. Okay. So this is where I always have to be careful that I get this oriented correctly. So I want this to be, this is the right side, so I need to flip it right sides together, and this is the right side of the zipper, okay? So just be careful that you get it oriented correctly. And I'm going to go like this, okay? And then we're going to clip this one. Oops, where's my clips? Right there. Make sure you get it lined up on the edges. I think I'm a little off here. Now I did have a little trouble with my first one when I made one this afternoon. I just hadn't made one for a while, so I went ahead and made one this afternoon. And this placemat is slightly larger than the one that I originally did the class with. So I had to do a little bit of adjusting at the end, so we may have to do that again. I've got my cutting mat over here, okay? So we've got this piece, and this is right sides together because I want the blue on the outside, okay? And we're going to switch back to Q02 because I want a 1/4 inch seam again. So I'm going to touch Q02 on my machine, and I'm going to go do my 1/4 inch seam by running it along the edge of the fabric. And we're going to do a little tie off here. I might need to back up a stitch because I think I'm a little close. There we go. Okay. Now I am just going to leave the, second here. Jan almost made a mistake. What did I do? I need to be sewing on the other side, because if you sew with that vinyl on the bottom, it doesn't like it. So I need to flip this upside down, so I'm sewing with the vinyl up. I did this afternoon too, so don't mind me. So we want to sew with the vinyl on the top. So I flipped it over so that I'm sewing with the vinyl on the top because it will work much better. The vinyl does not like feed dogs. Alright. Just habit. So it'll go right under that Teflon foot. It just works really well. I'm not used to sewing with vinyls, so this is one of the first things I've done with vinyl, so I have to think about it really hard. Okay. Keeping my 1/4 inch seam. So I'm kind of sewing from the back right now. Yep. I'm whacking everything in the back of the machine here. So is everybody following along okay? Hopefully this is making sense. It's just, like I said, I've just kind of made it up as I'm going. Okay, so there is my 1/4 inch seam, and then I have to pull this down again, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull this down, and this time we're folding the seam into the base part of it, okay? And then we're going to have to finger press, and then we're going to do another top stitch to top stitch this down. So this is a little bit thicker. You're just going to pull this down. I know that I, whoops, had to kind of fiddle with this for a little bit to get it to lay down for me, because it's kind of thick. Like that. Looks like I got cat hair in my vinyl. Imagine that. She was out here helping me today, so while I was cutting, so I'm sure she did. Okay, so then I've got this laid down flat, okay, and I'm going to top stitch this. Now this is going to be you're not really on the vinyl, you're mostly on fabric, so it should be okay. I had a little trouble, and again, I'm going to run it along that right-hand side, inside edge of my zigzag foot here, or my Teflon foot. Okay. I'm going to put the needle back in the center, because I forgot to do that, so we'll bring it up, and we're going to put the needle back in the center, so that I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from my seam here. Alright, let's tie that off again. And you have to kind of hold it, because you can't really iron this. I usually use pretty matchy thread, so I'm getting really brave using this bold red thread on this. Let's see how Jan does with her top stitching. I'm not a very good top stitcher. I used to be a lot better at it. I used to do a lot of top stitching, you know, when I was making clothes, and I just don't top stitch as much as I used to. So I have to kind of take my time. Okay, make sure you're laying it really flat. You have to kind of finger press it. So that looks pretty decent. So we'll go down here and we'll tie a knot. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at what we've done so far. Alright, hey, that doesn't look too bad. I didn't get it too crooked. It looks pretty good. Okay, so now this is the front of the bag. We've got the bottom piece on. We've top stitched it. Here's our vinyl. And then we have put our zipper on the two zipper fabrics. And we've top stitched this down to the vinyl. Okay, so that's the whole front of our bag. All right, so is there any questions? Does everybody understand what I've done so far? Okay, so that's the whole front of the bag. Okay, so now we need to get this bag attached to each other. So we need to attach the front of the bag to the back of the bag. So this is where I would then, make sure that I have decided where I want to, what side of the placemat I want to show through the window. So like the original one I made today, I wanted it to be the blue side. When sewing on plastic, do you use a longer stitch? Carolyn, I don't. I've actually been using about 2.5. It seems fine. That's why you want to use a pretty good weight vinyl. You could use a little longer stitch, maybe a 3, but I haven't had any trouble. I've done all of mine at 2.5, and it seems fine. So, okay, so this one I wanted the blue to show through. This one I'm going to have the plaid show through, okay? So this is going to be the side that I want. So now, with this then, we're going to put the bag together with the wrong side, we want the right side of this showing, and I'm just going to lay this on top. I'm not putting it right sides together, okay? I'm just laying it on top of the back piece, and that's the way I wanted it to look this time, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up my edges, and this is when I found out, that my placemat wasn't horribly straight. This one actually is a little straighter than the one this afternoon. And I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of clips in here. So I put my edges together. It's very ravelly on the bottom. Okay. And clip the bottom together here. Like that. And then I'm going to put a couple clips up this way, and then I'm seeing that my vinyl and stuff, well, actually it's fine. After I give it a little, I have to give it just a little help here, and it's fine. So we'll put a clip here and a clip here. And like I said, if you end up with your placemat not being quite even, it's fine. No, I haven't, Jan. I usually buy tablecloth vinyl because I can buy it by the yard. And some of that stuff is not heavy enough, so you want to have a pretty good grade of vinyl so that it holds up for you, okay? All right, so I'm up here to the zipper. Now, this is important. Don't forget this part, okay? We need to unzip this zipper towards the center, okay? So we don't sew over the zipper pull and then have to unsew and do it over. Your mats aren't even, I did center them, and I had to do, mine I had to do a little trimming, Lynn, so in a second here I'll show you, because I'm going to have to trim this one too. And you can trim it off a little bit, because I had to trim mine off, so I'm going to show you that when I get up to the top here. Second, we'll put a few more clips in here, okay? So I did unzip the zipper, so make sure you do that. These bags work great in the car for kids. Yeah, they do. And then you can see what's in them. That's the thing I like about them. So then you can see what's in them. Okay, so now you notice that my back of my bag is sticking up on the top here, okay? So I noticed this particular placemat was longer than the first placemat that I used. So I am going to have to cut off about a ½ inch on the top of this one as well. So what I'm going to do before I go any further and put any more clips up here, I'm going to take this over to my cutting mat, and I'm just going to trim off this top part right up against my zipper tape here, okay? My fabric that I put on my zipper tape, all right? So I'm just going to take this over to my cutting mat. Hopefully. Second, I'm going to move a couple things. Decided I better get the cutting mat out just in case this happened, and it did, so. And that's the only thing about, doing this when you have something like a placemat like this, it can be slightly inconsistent. All right, so let's get this trimmed off. That looks good. I'm stuck to the vinyl. There we go. Alright, I think I got it straight. Okay, so here's I trimmed it off the top. And I'm going to go ahead and, I had to zip my zipper up just to do the trimming, so I'll go back and do this again. But I wasn't sure, it depends on the placemats, they're all just a little bit different, and they're not horribly consistent. So this one was actually pretty square. I didn't have too much trouble with this one. So let me unzip this a little bit again, and then we'll put the clips back in the side seams here. Okay. And then we'll go over here. Oh, you had it going the wrong way? Oh, you must have, yeah, because yours is going to be a little more square than mine. Mine was definitely rectangular because it was longer. But it depends on yeah, my first one was like that too. You have to make sure you get it the right way. Are you putting the bottom seam on the inside of the bag? You mean down here? This is the outside of the bag where the seam allowance is inside, Barb. All right, so I'm going to put some clips along the top here. All right, that looks pretty good. What do you think? I think that looks pretty straight. And then at this point, I'm just going to do kind of an 1/8 inch seam all the way around the bag just to hold everything together, and then before I do the binding, okay? All right. I've still got my my Teflon foot on, and I'm going to leave the needle in the center, and I'm going to use the inside of that zigzag foot to help me do approximately an 1/8 of an inch seam. I'm just kind of doing a little top stitch to kind of hold this together, and I don't want it to show in my binding later, so I'm going to make it a narrow one, okay? So we're just going to sew this around. We're going to sew all the way around it. And this is where, of course, we want to make sure that we have moved that zipper pull, opened it so that we will not sew off our zipper pull. Okay, we're going to flip this over here. I'm going to move my clips so I won't fly them all over the room. Okay, I'm going to do the bottom here. Yeah, that's why I love these kind of bags, because they're clear. So like if you want to put your whole quilting project in here, they have a clear front so you can see what you're looking at, looking for. Because if you have it in a little box or in a different bag, then you have to open it up to look at it, and this one you can see right through it. So that's why I've always liked these project bags with the clear fronts. And I've made a couple of them, but I'm just not very good with vinyl, so this was kind of a scary class for me to teach. That's why it took me a little bit to get it going, because I had to experiment, and I also had to get the measurements right. I struggled a little bit with the measurements. Okay, let's make sure we got this all even. I'm just sewing around it about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, just to kind of hold it together for me before I put the binding on, okay? So if it's not real even, it's okay. We're just doing this as a kind of a baste all the way around the bag. And you notice I still don't have the handle on either. All right, so let's take these off. Now we're going to sew over these zippers, okay? All right, so we're going to sew over these zippers. Whoops, second here. I want to keep them pretty close together, though. And we're just going to sew right over. And again, see, I have it open. Here's the tail right over here, the little tab, okay? Sew over the zipper. And if you want to sew over it twice, you can, but we are going to sew over it 2 more times with the binding, so you don't really need to. This is just kind of a base to hold everything together. So I need to take another stitch. There we go. All right. And I do have my pivot feature on right now because I like the pivot when I'm doing this kind of stuff. It raises my foot and drops my needle so that I don't have to touch a bunch of buttons when I've got my hands full. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm all straight up here at the top. All right, take the clips out. And we're doing good on time, so I might actually start the binding. And then you can watch, I'll have the binding from start to finish in another video, but I may start the binding so you can kind of see what I did. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it around again. We're just going down to right here. We're almost all the way around. Take this clip out. So I got my Teflon foot on. So I'm sewing on that vinyl again. That's why I made the video. I was putting the other binding on. I thought, well, just in case we don't, I didn't want to, make the class a 2-hour class. I mean, an hour and 15 minutes or hour and 20 minutes would be okay. So I might start a little bit of the binding. I'm going to go ahead and tie this off all the way around. Okay. All right, and our bag is all in one piece. So again, it was very important that you opened up the zipper, okay? Right? Please do the binding. I did, yes, Jan, I'll start the binding, but I did a full video from start to finish doing the binding and all the assembly, okay? So I have a separate video for that too. But, because I have some people that don't know how to make binding at all, and I thought, you know, I'll try to do as much of it as I can though. Sometimes it goes faster than I think, so, okay. All right, so we've got our bag sewn all around with a baste. It's about an eighth of an inch, so I didn't want it to show, you know, in my binding, okay? Then I'm going to trim off these zippers. So, of course, you know, this is where we check to make sure that the zipper pull is over here and not on the end when we cut off our zipper pull. So, you know, I've done that lots of times. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim this zipper off, even with the bag, like that. And this end too. Sure the zipper pull's in there. Trim this off. All right, so there is the bag so far. So what do you think? Do you think we're doing okay? I know, isn't it fun? This is a really fun little project. After I got over the initial frustration with the sizing, I had trouble with getting the pattern right, getting the cutting instructions right for everybody. Okay, so now the next step we need to put on the handle. So we're going to turn it over. And I am going to, whoops, I got to find my ruler here. I'm going to measure to the center, and it should be about, mine's almost exactly 14 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my ruler here, and I'm going to mark the center, or 7 inches, with a pin on my bag. So this is on the back of the bag. Okay? This is the back. And then I'm going to measure them 2 inches to either side of the center. All right? So then I can put a pin in at 5 inches. Oops. It's hard to do on the machine. And at 9 inches. So I want 2 inches from the center, okay? And we'll take out the middle pin because we won't need that one. Maybe. Okay, here's the 9-inch mark. Okay. Then take the middle pin out, and then we're going to put the handle on. So let me show you the finished one. So when you put your handle on, you want that little seam that we iron flat. We want that seam to be facing up. And you don't want your handle twisted, so just be careful when you go to put your handle on. And I'm going to put my handles on the outside of this pin so that it's a full 2-inch, you know, a full 4 inches between the two, okay? So I'm going to put the outside edge or the inside edge of my handle on the outside of the pin. And I'm just going to clip it on with the clip like that. And I've got that little seam up. And then I'm going to flip it around and just make sure you don't twist it when you do this. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to put the inside of the handle on the outside of the pin. So there's 4 inches in here. And I'm going to clip it on. Okay, so when we put the binding on, this is all going to be sewn in the binding. Okay? All right. So we've got our handle ready to go here. And if you want to, you can just go ahead and do a little tacking stitch on the handle too if you want to. I didn't. I just left it clipped and it seemed fine. All right. So when we do the binding, I am going to go ahead and start the binding. It's only 7 o'clock, so we're doing good. I didn't want to make this too long, and I did make, like I said, I did make a separate video for just the binding, and I actually started from the very beginning. How to make your binding, how to sew your binding together. Now mine's already sewn together, so we'll just start there tonight because I have it all sewn end to end, and I have it folded it in half, and it's 2 1/4. But on the video, the other video that I'll upload, I start from the very beginning, sewing it together end to end and everything, okay? Because I do have some new people that they may have never done binding before. Okay. So at this point, I'm sewing on the back of the bag. Well, I had a really hard time with the binding the first time I did this because of this vinyl. You know, like I said, the vinyl doesn't like to move along with feed dogs too well. So what I discovered today that works quite well is to take some of that Kimberbell paper tape, and I'm going to put it, and we don't want to sew into it if we can avoid that, but I want to cover up the area where the feed dogs are going to be going along this vinyl right here. So I'm going to take this Kimberbell, and the Kimberbell tape does not leave residue. So it works a lot better. So I'm going to take this Kimberbell tape, and remember, this is 1/8 of an inch, so we want to go out far enough that we're not going to sew into the tape. And I'm just going to put a piece of this tape down on where the vinyl is, because I have to put this binding on the back, because I want to do this on the machine. And I put it on the back. So I'm just going to lightly press that down on this side, and we're going to do it over here too. And I found this worked out real well so that I didn't, and then my bag slid through my machine very well. Because I really struggled getting my first binding on my first one, and I couldn't figure out, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, it's because this vinyl is against my feed dogs. So just bring it in far enough so that you're not going to catch it in your seam allowance, okay? And just put it along there, but the feed dogs are going to lay along across there, all right? Okay. So I'm going to, then this is the Kimberbell tape. Again, the Kimberbell tape does not leave residue, and I've noticed that it works really, really well. So I am going to take, I like to put my binding on. Does the tape come in that dispenser? No, it doesn't, Jan. The tape that did come in this dispenser, it came from Walgreens, and Lynn sent me another one. Where did I put it, Lynn? It's here. Lynn sent me another one. I got this at Walgreens, and the tape that came with it does not leave residue either. Don't buy the cheap stuff at the dollar store, because that just leaves residue all over. This was from Walgreens, and you have to go back to where the Band-Aids are, and it's there, and they have these little, and you get 2 rolls of tape with it, and the dispenser, but I really like the Kimberbell tape the best, okay? Yes, tissue paper works fine too, Judy, or Jody. My grandmother used tissue paper for everything. So, but I found out that I happened to have tape right here. I didn't have any tissue paper, so the tissue paper, or the tape worked great. So, okay, so I'm going to put my J-foot back on my machine. Yeah, medical tape, but you want to buy the good medical tape. This is the stuff from Walgreens, and it didn't leave residue, but I bought some cheap stuff at the dollar store, and it just leaves gooey stuff all over everything. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the binding. I am working from the back of the bag. That's why I put the tape on that vinyl, so that it would go across my feed dogs. I have my J-foot on, and I need a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to go back to Q02, move my needle over to the right, and I'm going to be using the edge of my foot as my seam guide. Okay? And let's see, let's just start at the bottom here. We'll start at the bottom of the bag. And I like to, let's start on the side, because sometimes it's easier when I have a little more space. So let's start on the side. I'm going to put my raw edges together, okay? And I'm going to leave a little tail, so I'm going to leave maybe 6 or 8 inches or so. That's open. And I'm going to slide down here. So let me get my bags out of the way. And I'm going to slide down here towards the corner. And I'm going to do a knot, tie it off here. It's just a little closer so you can see. I have to leave the camera far enough away so that I don't hit it all the time. All right, then we're going to come down here to the corner. So this is when we do the binding. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to go down to the corner. And I'm going to stop about 1/4 inch from the corner. Now I do the 1/4 inch by eye generally, and I'm going to tie a knot there. I've done a lot of binding, so I'm better at judging that 1/4 inch, okay? Then I'm going to take my binding. We need to turn the corner. I'm going to take the binding up at a 45-degree angle. Here's my corner right here, okay? I am going to bring it straight up, and then I'm going to bring it down. Straight on the corners. And I've still got a nice corner there. I'm going to start on the edge, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to tie a knot. Now I am still using polyester thread because I want this to be strong because it is a bag. Okay, and I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch seam across the bottom. Now this one's not going to be a problem because I'm sewing on fabric on both sides on this one. Got a 1/4 inch seam all the way to the other end. We're getting close to the corner here. I must have had a little inconsistency, sorry guys, in my binding there, so I have kind of a little tail sticking out. And I'm going to go down here about a 1/4 inch from the end, and I'm going to stop. Tie a knot. Again, this is working from the back of the bag. All right, I'm going to turn it around here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go up to at a 45-degree angle. I am going to fold it up and then fold it straight down. Get it all lined up again. Okay. And like I said, I'll go into more detail in the other video, so I will upload that right after class, so you will have that also, because I do have some people that have never done binding, and I wanted to make sure they knew how to actually sew it together and get it ready. Now, there is also on the Dropbox, on the group, and I did the video yesterday to show you how to get there. There is also a document on there called Bind Aid, and if you've never done binding before, that's how I learned to do binding. It's great. It's just a couple pages, but it shows you with pictures how to put binding on. It's more traditional because they have you put it on the front, and flip it to the back and hand stitch it. And if you want to do that with this, you can as well. I prefer to machine bind things, especially little stuff like this. It's so much faster. I don't like to hand stitch. Now, did you notice how it just went right over the side? I didn't have any trouble with it catching on that vinyl because that tape's on there. Yeah, Jody, my grandmother used tissue paper for everything. Anytime things wouldn't move, she put tissue paper on it. So I'm going to stop about 1/4 inch away. But I didn't have any tissue paper. It's packed with my wrapping paper in the other room. Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn it again. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to flip this back at a 45-degree angle. And see, I got a little close to this end. So I am going to take my scissors and I'm just going to clip because I'm just a little close. So I need a stitch there. But it'll be fine because we'll be sewing over it again. I'm going to bring this up and then bring it straight down, lining up my corners. I wasn't sure how long this would take. That's why I made the extra video, because I was just worried that, it might take a little longer. Sometimes my bag this afternoon was a little bit more crooked, so I had to do some more adjusting. This one was pretty straight, so, okay, so we're going to go along the edge here. Now, when we get up to these handles, okay, we got that clip in there with that handle. We don't want our handle to move, so I'm just going to hold this down, take the clip out, and then hold the handle in place so I can go over it. Now, the one thing I did do with this one is I did back up over the handle. I hit the reverse so that it would go backwards over the handle. Sorry, my machine's being contrary tonight. There you go. And I sewed over it twice, just so that it was a little stronger for the handle. We will be doing, of course, sewing the binding down, so that will help too. All right, so here is the second handle. I want to make sure that my binding and everything's lined up. I'm going to take that clip out and hold my handle down. And sew over that, and then I'm going to back up over it, just so that I've got a little 2 extra stitches in the handle. Give it a little strength. No, Jan, I have not. The reason I don't is that you asked about the blanket bag vinyl. It's not as heavy as this is. So I mean, you can, but it's not as heavy, and I don't know if it will hold up as well. I think it'll tear easier. Okay. I'm going to cut that off. I'm at the corner again. I stopped about 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to flip this up at a 45-degree angle and then bring it straight down. And we're going to start on the edge here. Drop my needle and I'm going to tie another knot. This one's going to be pretty. This one's going to look different than the other one. I like that I can do the two-sided, and then you can mix and match the way they look. All right, now, well, I'm just about down to where I'm going to meet my other piece. So we don't want to go too far. We want to leave a little opening here, a gap, just so that we have a little room to work. So I'm going to go down maybe a couple inches here on this side, and then I'm going to tie a knot, and I'm going to stop. So I need a little space in here to work, okay? When we go to flip this. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, here's my binding, okay? And I'm going to take, this is the part, this is the longer piece that we just ended up here. And I'm going to take this and I'm just going to kind of fold it down like this. And then I'm going to take the other piece that I left open and I'm going to flip it up. So now they're overlapped. Will this video? Yes, it will, Elaine. And there'll be a surprise coming later in the week that you'll be able to find the videos faster too. Elaine asked if the video was going to be on Facebook for a while. Until I take it down, it'll be there. Okay, so then I've got these overlapped. All right. Now I'm going to take my hem gauge and I have, remember this was 2 1/4 inch binding. So we need to measure 2 1/4 inches because these need to overlap 2 1/4 inches. So I'm going to have, I have my hem gauge set at 2 1/4 inches. I'm going to put it right on the end of this piece right here, okay? Putting it right on the end of that. I'm going to take a pin. Sorry, I got a fuzz on my nose. These little placemats are fuzzy. I am going to take my pin and I'm going to go measure down to the end, and I'm putting it in the back piece at the 2 1/4 inch mark. In other words, we need these two pieces of fabric to overlap 2 1/4 inches. Okay. So I'm going to flip this down, and here is that piece, and I have my pin at the 2 1/4 inch, so it was overlapping. So you can see again, I'll put it up there. See, it's overlapping 2 1/4 inches here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this back on the pin, and I'm going to cut this off. And I have plenty of binding. I actually had almost another piece. Well, this was a little short piece, so you only need about 3. You actually only need about 3 widths of your back quarter. But I said 4 because so you'd have a little extra in case you needed it. All right, so I'm going to trim that off. Okay. So now these two pieces will overlap 2 1/4 inches. Okay. So this is always the tricky part. We need to get this so that it's continuous binding, so we need to get it connected together. So what I'm going to do is take the left-hand side and I'm going to put it back on itself like at a 45-degree angle like we did the corners. And I'm going to take this side and I'm going to open up the fabric so I can see the whole right side of the fabric. And there's the fold where I folded it in half. Okay, I'm going to lay that here. And then I'm going to take this piece down here. Make sure you can see it well. I'm also going to open this up like this, and I'm going to keep going because I have it turned down, and I'm going to keep going in the same direction. So in other words, I've got it open like this, and I'm going to keep going in the same direction. So it's down and you're going to keep going this way because we need to have it lined up here. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to keep going. I've got my thumb on the fold, and I'm just going to keep going with it in the same direction like this. And the two ends will be together. And I'm going to line up those points. Gotta find my pins again. And I'm going to put a pin down here. And I'm going to put a pin over here. All right. So now I need to mark, because I'm going to have to sew across this like I did to put my binding together. I want to sew in a diagonal. So what I do usually is I take a water-soluble marker, and I like to mark my corners of my edges. So this one's underneath here. See, I want to mark right here so I know exactly where the edge of my fabric is, and I'm going to mark over here. And I showed this in the other video, so the other video is a little bit more detailed, okay? All right, so then I need to get this flattened out, so you have to kind of bend your bag here and get this flattened out, and I'm going to move my needle back to the center position by going back to Q01. And I'm also going to turn on my laser light, because I use my laser light when I'm doing these diagonal lines, and it really helps. So I'm going to turn my laser light on. On my machine, it's up here. I hope you can see it. It's right here. And I'm going to turn it on, and then it's going to shine down here so I can do my diagonal. I think you can see it in the video, and I put it on in the video too, so you can, the other video, so you can see it. And I'm going to line up that little mark that I made with my water-soluble marker with my laser lights. I'm going to take a couple stitches just to get it on the fabric, and then I'm going to make sure that my binding is laying flat. And then I'm going to go over to the other corner where my other mark is. I'm just a little crooked here, just a second. Sometimes things want to scoot on you. There we go. My corner wanted to scoot just a little bit. There we go. And then go over to the other side. And the laser light really helps that a lot, because then you can see where you're going. All right. Then, at this point, I'm going to take these pins out, and I always test it before I do any cutting to know that I have this put together correctly. So it should lay flat like that with the raw edges along the edge of the side of your bag, which it does. So now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to trim this off here, about 1/4 of an inch from the seam. And then we're going to finger press this open so that it's nice and flat in there. Maybe, if I can get a hold of it. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to, I like to clip or pin this, and I'm probably going to clip this one because there's, we got that vinyl along the edge there, so I am going to clip this. And we're going to go back to, we're kind of up here where we ended. And I'm going to clip along here. And down to the bottom. There we go. And I'm going to go back to my 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to use Q02. I'm going to turn off my laser light. And I'm going to go back to Q02, move that needle back over so I can have my 1/4 inch seam again. And then I'm going to stitch the rest of the binding on. Okay. And off we go to finish this little section. Okay, and I'm just a little, sometimes I get my little piece is just a little bit big, so I'm going to work in a little bit of this fullness. It's not bad though, but I do every now and then I'll get a little teeny pucker that I didn't quite get a deep enough seam. but it's pretty close. There we go. And when it's on the back, when it's on the inside, you don't even see it. So I think I got it worked in anyway. All right, 1/4 inch seam, and I'm just about down to where we started down here. Okay, work that in just a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah, that tape really helped a lot with the vinyl. Okay. Alrighty. So, there is, the binding is on the bag. We're getting a little late now, so I think what I do at this point, and I do put this in the other video, and I'm going to upload this right after class, I iron this down on the back with steam. I would tell you to take this tape off first before you do that, so you don't get residue on your vinyl, okay? Take the tape off before you steam it. I'm going to iron this down very flat and have a very good crease all the way around, okay? And then what I do is I turn this to the front and stitch it down. But I go into detail of the binding, and we're running a little late. It's almost 7:30, so I think I'm going to let you watch the rest of it on the video, and I will upload it. Give me about a half an hour, and I'll upload it. And then we're going to be turning this to the front and zigzagging it on, okay? I do mention in there about a different foot. I did not use the foot. Now see, I am going to still get a little bit of residue, okay? I got a little residue here. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little Goo Gone before I do my binding, and I'll just get that off. It'll be just fine, okay? All right, because I did have a little bit of residue on this. That surprises me, because normally the Kimberbell tape, I don't have any residue, unless this for some reason wasn't Kimberbell. It might have been some of the cheaper stuff, so, okay? So I will take a little bit of Goo Gone and take this off before I go any further, before I put the binding on, okay? So there's a couple of things that I wanted to show you. So that is in the next video, is the actual zigzagging of this down, all right, and all the little tricks that I did for that. So I will upload that probably within about a half an hour. It takes me a little bit to upload, okay? And then that would be our bag. So once we get it all zigzagged on, let me get this out of the way here. I zigzag this one on the front, okay? And there is the bag with the binding. I just think it looks so professional with the binding on the edge, don't you? I just really like the binding on it, instead of just having a plain seam or having it open. So this was a really fun project, and after I got over that initial having problems with the measurements, it was really fun and it turned out really good. So watch the video for the rest of the binding. If you've never done machine binding, I go into real good detail with that, okay? I did want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming up. Next week, we are going to be having a scan and cut class, and we're going to be making this card on the scan and cut. And it is going to be a birthday card, and we're going to cut out this birthday, and we're going to do some drawing with the card, and we're going to cut out a back for the card. Okay, so that'll be next week. I'm also going to be uploading a video, because I also have the video about how I created this card. I will put that up as well, and I'm going to put up the design on Dropbox. So that you can download the designs for this for next week if you don't want to do the software yourself. But I'm going to show you how to do it in the software, and I will be uploading that probably tomorrow. Okay, so you have a week to look at the actual software part side of this. Okay, but we're just going to do the cutting and stuff in the class. I also wanted to show you what's coming up then in March. I'm working on a software class for the first weekend in March. But the second 2 weekends of March will be, I'm going to hold this up so you can see it, will be this is the Kimberbell Hoppy Easter Pillow. So this is coming up this is the second and third Sunday of March. Isn't this adorable? It was so much fun. I did this all quilt as you go. So can you see all the cute little quilting designs? Those are all those little Kimberbell quilt as you go designs. The whole thing's done that way and sewn together. I just finished it this afternoon. And then it has all these darling little embellishments, like little bunny ears and the um, glitter vinyl, and then you put the little carrot tops on. Aren't they cute? Did you do that? Yes, we're going to do the drawing also. So that's part of the design, Jan, and I'm going to show you how to draw and do the cutting part on the same design. So that's the software part. So you can do the software part if you want. If you don't want to, you will have the design on Dropbox, and I will put this up, but it probably won't be till tomorrow. I'll do this tomorrow. I'm gonna upload all the stuff from tonight's class first. Okay? But this will be then in March. This is the pillow that we're going to do in March. If you don't have the design, it's up on our website. So it's called Happy Easter, and Happy Easter bench pillow. So this is going to be one of the next classes, okay? And then, isn't it darling? I just love it. This has been really, really fun to do, and it was actually really easy. So it was a really fun one. So this will be really, really fun to do. And then we're also going to do, the software class will be we're going to do one of those little table toppers in the 6x6 hoop, or those little 6x6 frames. So that's coming up. So all this stuff will be up on the group probably within the next couple of days, because I've got almost everything done now and I can actually get it up there. So, okay? So I just wanted to kind of show you some of the things that are coming up, and then be watching for the video to come up for the rest of the binding, so that you know how to do the zigzagging and all I go through all the settings that I use and everything all the way around the bag. Some of you have done binding before, so you probably can just flip it over and start binding. But I wanted to do a really detailed video on binding, okay? Yep, and then they fit, see how my pop rulers fit in here so nice? And they don't have to be real neat in there either. See, mine are not real neat in the bag. They're just kind of in there, and they're all in there, and you got a nice handle. And what I do with my handle is I actually have this hanging from a nail and have all my pop rulers hanging up there behind my machine here. So, isn't that cool? And there's plenty of room in there for all the rulers. So, okay. Oh, you're going to make your some ruler bags. I know, aren't these great? I just really like these bags. So after I got over that initial problem, then I'm good. Okay, so I will upload, as soon as we get done, I'm going to upload the rest of the binding video. So if you don't know what to do with the zigzagging, it's all on there. That video is about 45 minutes, so it took me a little while to get around it. I actually did the whole thing, okay? And I'm anxious to see your bags, so please put pictures of your bags and all the different colors you used. And I will be seeing you next week doing scan and cut, and I will also be uploading all the scan and cut stuff. It probably will be tomorrow when I do scan and cut, okay? And then I'll have another surprise for you later in the week for the videos and files. So I have a little more work to do before I can surprise you, so, okay? So if there's no more questions, I will put the camera on me to say goodbye, and we will... Isn't the bag cute? I think it'll work out really fine. So I think everybody will have really good time with it. And hopefully the pattern was easy enough so you can understand how I did it. Okay, so we will see you next week for Scan and Cut for the birthday card. And we're also going to have a guest artist on Facebook with the cards. I'm not a card maker, and Lynn Olensalen is a card maker. So she did a video to show you how to do some embellishments and stuff on your cards. So I was really excited, and I'll upload that as well with the class for next week. So, okay? Alrighty. Everybody have a good evening, and I'll be watching for the video here in a few minutes, and I'll get it up there so you can watch the rest of the binding. Thanks, everybody. Good night.